facilitate this workshop. Thank you again for joining us. But just one more thing, housekeeping rules. Well, not really rules, but bathrooms. If any of y'all need to use the bathroom while you're here, there's some straight down past the computers. If not, there's some right around the corner by the auditorium. Other than that, we'll hand it over. And if you need some water, just let me know. I'm more than happy to get y'all some, okay? All right.
Thanks, Carlos.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hey, my name is Alfred Mesquiti. I'm the founder of DeckSavvy, a presentation design and development firm here in San Antonio. I'm actually based in Kingdom, just down the street, and I've actually given this presentation a couple of times, various different places around town. I speak at Breakfast and Launch. I'm a mentor there. I speak at Kingdom. I've given a presentation at most recently at San Antonio Entrepreneurship Week. Some of you, I think, may have seen that one. This presentation actually has evolved into something a lot larger, so I'm trying to give it a little bit of a more streamlined approach since you guys are part of the Venture Challenge and you're getting a lot of useful resources today. But I hope that this is informal and that you find it, informative, and that you find some useful information that you can use as you start to develop your own pitch decks. So yeah, I wanted to be comprehensive. I will do my best not to make it boring, but I do want to talk about pitch deck structure as well as incorporating your story into the pitch deck and being able to communicate that better with investors. First thing I should do though, and I always like to do this because it really shows how I fit into all of this, is really who am I? I sometimes get introduced to people as like a person who makes pitch decks. I don't really like to refer to myself that way because ultimately you should be creating your pitch deck. You are your business. You know your business better than anyone, including myself. But the challenge you have is also communicating that in your business. So how do I fit into all this when I started my business here? Some people may think of me as an investor, others as a startup guru, or maybe like a serial entrepreneur, kind of in this whole realm. I'm not any of these, I'll tell you up front, but to challenge some of those assumptions, no, I'm not an investor. So I'm not working with startups looking to invest in them myself. I'm not a high net worth individual. I don't have any of that affiliation as far as working with other startups or small businesses or anyone looking to raise money for their business. So I'm not an investor. I'm also not a startup guru. I work with a lot of startups. I also work with small businesses and corporations. Being at Geekdom, I'm talking to startups every day. I help them put together a lot of their own pitches, but I can't really advise them on how to put together a comprehensive financial model or what's their best scaling option. That's usually where I'm not really their best resource. And I don't tell them that up front because it's best not to create any misunderstandings. Am I a serial entrepreneur? No, still not. So DeckSavvy is still my only really entrepreneurial endeavor. I started it about 4 years ago. And I myself am an entrepreneur like many of you. I have to wear all those hats. It's currently just me running my business, and I face a lot of the similar challenges you have in terms of scaling, in terms of marketing, all the things and all the struggles that you have. I've faced those myself, and I do like to share any advice that I have, any lessons that I've learned, but also maybe one day I can start another venture, but for now this keeps it pretty busy. So what do I do exactly? So again, I don't tell people that I make pitch decks. What I say is I help people tell stories. So a pitch deck is a story. Apart from that, if you are, for example, say you're a nutritionist and you're trying to advise the school board on changing the offering of sugary drinks or sodas in a vending machine at a school, you have to make a pretty compelling case as well as provide facts, evidence, and also not be too confrontational if you're presenting to a PTA or to a school board. And ultimately, you have to change their opinion or maybe have them follow up with you for more information to be able to make that case and ultimately drive some change within that school system. Maybe you're a sales manager and you are part of a large corporation and you have a team that you're trying to allocate 20% more budget for the next fiscal year, maybe like a $3-4 million account or budget that you have. But in order to secure that, you really have to do your best to provide some compelling examples to your manager or people above you to provide them, again, with evidence and and with a compelling reason to allocate more budget and to ultimately make them change their mind on something they might have already thought they made up. And again, back to investment or startups that I work with a lot. If you are a tech startup founder and you're looking to secure $1 million in Series A funding, you have to make a really compelling case to an investor about your business. You have to make it informative, you have to demonstrate that the business model is sound, and you have to also build trust with that investor so that they do follow up with you and they will either write a check or ask for another meeting with you down the road. So again, these are all examples of scenarios and clients that I work with in helping tell their stories better. Really what these stories are is, in any presentation, you want to build something that's designed for conversion. And conversion has many different aspects to it. But really what conversion is for example, if it's a startup, conversion is an investor signing you a check or asking for more information. If we go back to that first example of the nutritionist, conversion is maybe changing somebody's idea or opinion about something. Think of a TED Talk. If you go to a TED Talk, you usually come out of it with either a different opinion or a different thinking on something that you thought you understood. And so the most effective presentations have a way of resonating with you as the audience and making you either think about something differently, or again, if you're an investor, maybe fund your dream and follow up with more information. So going into pitch decks, first what you should understand is, I'll give you the long, boring definition. What is a pitch deck? A pitch deck is a communication medium used to solicit investments for an individual, a company, or an idea. Potential investors use a pitch deck as a means for measuring the viability of an investment in a business opportunity, and these are also known as investment presentations. I promise this is the only boring definition I'll do today. But really, it's good to understand this because what a pitch deck really is it's an extension of your elevator pitch. And I think you should all know what your elevator pitch is by now. I'll give you a brief example. Say you're at the Weston Center, about to go out for a meeting, you hit the up button, the door opens, and Mark Cuban's there. I used to change him, I had somebody else this time, but Mark Cuban's in the elevator, so you're about to go in the elevator with Mark Cuban. You have unlimited access to this individual for anywhere from 30 to maybe 90 seconds, and you probably won't get access like this again. Maybe obviously you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for investment. You want to find a way to actually get his attention, talk to him about your business very briefly, but ultimately leave him in a position where he's either writing you a check or he's asking for your information to follow up. So elevator pitch is a little bit difficult, it's challenging. You have to be very brief and concise about summarizing your business and your business model. That's a challenge in itself, but once you have that down, that helps actually influence your pitch deck a little bit better and provide some guidance for how to actually tell that story without either providing too much information or boring your audience. So let's discuss what should be in a pitch deck. So these are all the technical and structural aspects of the pitch deck. You guys have this handout that Venture Challenge is doing for you. And what I like is they based the template exactly on the book that I based this discussion on. There's a great book out there, and I'll recommend this again. It's called Get Backed by Evan Baer and Evan Loomis. Evan actually came to, this was Cafe Commerce last year, he came and spoke, I believe it was last summer, about structuring a pitch deck, but he also, the book is really great because he incorporates storytelling as well as a lot of useful tips regarding design and how to actually pitch your venture versus just focusing on one aspect. Your pitch deck by itself should do a lot of work for you, but again, it's you as the team and how do you present that ultimately creates a much better presentation overall. But let's discuss what should be in a pitch deck. So first, before you look at the template, what we want to look at is the basic structure of a pitch will have a few things. The first is the overview, opportunity, problem, solution, traction, customer or market, competition, business model, team, and use of funds. So these aren't, I don't want you to think of these as like 10 slides that need to be in a pitch deck. They could very well be 10 slides. Ultimately, you do want to always aim for brevity and be very brief in your presentation. But these are more components of it. So really, there's a lot of ways to break down a pitch deck. I think if you will research information on it, you'll find a lot of different approaches to it, and that's okay because ultimately, a pitch deck needs to do its best job at describing your business, and it's going to be a custom approach. There's no really cookie-cutter way to do it, but there's a lot of useful guidelines, and these are one of them. So again, this is the structure that Evan proposes from Get Back. And what I actually do to summarize these a little bit better, so we have 10 areas, 10 key areas that should be in a pitch deck. I like to summarize these actually into 5 components. So my summary of them is a little bit easier way for you to understand. So basically what a pitch deck needs to say is the following. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is how we do it. This is how we can do it better with your help. And this is how you, as the investor, can help us. So I have this image of the house here because look at it this way. Think of like a stilt house on 5 pillars. If you remove any of those foundational pillars from the house will not be as structurally sound as it was when all of them were in place. So these are each of those pillars. An investor also looks for this. At least a smart investor will look for this when you are presenting your venture to them. If an investor notices that any of these are missing or that they're not sufficient with the information, or there's something that's not connecting, not only will they most likely call that out to you, but they'll also start picking at all the other ones. And I think if you watch any episodes of Shark Tank, you've seen where pitches have gone completely off the rails, or founders get very defensive, or they're very emotional, and it's not a good position to be in. And usually what leads you there is something that's either missing or not communicating or not connecting within that pitch that you're making. So really, though, to simplify it, these really are the key areas that you want to focus on. And I'll go into these in a little bit more detail. So the first one is this is who we are. This speaks directly to you and your team. And also if you're a solo operation, that's fine. But I'm actually going to say that this is the most important element of your pitch. Any smart investor knows that they aren't buying your product, they're not investing in your business model, they're ultimately investing in you and your team. That's usually going to be the deal breaker for any investment, even if everything else is working on paper. If your team is not, if you're just not a likable person, or if you're not trustworthy, they're not going to invest in you. If there's anything pertaining to your skill set or your market knowledge that an investor might not be comfortable with, they'll either address that with you, or maybe that's, again, that might be where they ultimately decide not to make an investment. The difficult part here, and the reason I write it's not me, it's you, is investors like to hedge their bets. So what that means is, if there's an issue with you or the team, and that makes an investor not really decide to move forward with the investment, they're probably not going to tell you that. They're going to give you other reasons. Think of like if you're applying for a job and the HR manager will be like, well, we filled the position from within, or we went with a different option. They're not really going to tell you like, oh, you don't have the experience that we're looking for. People kind of like to go around or beat around the bush. But an investor also, they'll tell you no, but they don't want to shut the door completely, because they always want to be open to maybe down the road they come back to you or you come back to them and they see that you're a growing business, you have more traction, you have customers, and at that point they'll be like, hey, you actually are on my radar again, like let me follow up. So that's an investor's best interest, but still, if you get no a lot, don't be afraid to ask why. Don't be afraid to try to get some useful information. If you're getting no or hearing no, or maybe something's not connecting, ask an investor, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me. Can you point me to someone that you think can help me on this problem that you think that I have in my business model, or somebody who maybe can give me some advice? And those are really good opportunities where maybe you can get connected to someone that can help you in an area that you feel that you're not strong in the business, or maybe a potential partner or co-founder. So this is a big one. And ultimately, always think of you are the business, and so always think of it that way. Don't let investors cloud your your judgment or your image of what the business should be, but at the same time, be very receptive and open to that feedback because it is valuable feedback. The next two components, I put these together because these are really the big bulk and meat and potatoes of what's in the deck. This is what we do, and this is how we do it. So this is where a vast majority of your content in the pitch deck is going to be, and it covers a lot of ground. First one is, what problem are you solving in the marketplace? And how are you solving that problem? Just feel these. So, always keep in mind the KISS approach. Keep it simple, Sally or stupid, or however the last S is for you. Again, we always want to aim for brevity. That tends to make a lot of founders a little bit uncomfortable because especially when you're putting together the first iteration of your pitch deck, you want to put as much information, as much detail, and basically everything on paper that you can. But that's actually the worst way to present to somebody. I think if you've seen really bad presentations, when you have a ton of information on the slides, especially in a live presentation, your audience is going to be very distracted. Ultimately, especially if you're speaking this live, you want to be able to provide enough information that an audience can understand and comprehend it, but if they need more information, that's fine. They can follow up with you. You can give them an appendix. There's different ways to present it. And actually, within your template, and this has always been practiced, there's never really one version of the pitch deck that you put together. There's usually going to be two. The first one is a presentation deck, and the second one is your reading deck. So your reading deck will have all of the information there. It'll have all the details. It'll provide a lot more context than something that you're giving live, because usually the way these conversations happen is you have an initial contact with an investor. They ask you, hey, let's follow up, send me your pitch deck. So they look at it ahead of time. You're not there to present it. So that's when you send them the reading deck. This is going to answer a majority of the questions for you up front. The best pitch decks, the best reading decks they're always structured to be bulletproof, where if there's any doubt, if there's any hesitation, or any question an investor may have, they're usually going to be able to answer that question within the reading deck. The presentation deck is based off of the reading deck, but it's more summarized. You don't want to present the same information when you're actually in front of that investor, because they already know who you are, they already know what information you're giving, and they ultimately, you're there to sell yourself as the team. And they want to connect the team to all of that content that you're putting together. So that's where the two versions of the pitch deck come into play. Also, some areas that I mentioned here regarding your market landscape and competition. You want to think about, you can follow along here in your template, but some questions to ask regarding the market landscape, which is part of, this is who we are, this is how we define the market. What does your market look like right now? So I give this presentation to Break Fast and Launch a lot, so we talk about food, now we'll talk about food. But for example, if you are starting like a cupcake business, cupcakes a couple years ago were like huge, like they're all over the place. I wonder what cupcakes look like now to a potential investor. Yeah, I'm sure it's good to open up a cupcake store again, so I'm sure that you can get customers, but is that really something that is a worthy investment opportunity as much as it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago? Probably not. But you still want to see where you fit in that market and do your market research to understand how that market works. I think everyone also wants to be first to market with a truly novel or revolutionary idea, where I meet a lot of founders who say, no one else is doing this. Like, we found this opportunity, we're the only ones here. And for a founder, that's really exciting. And that's they feel that they are very innovative and they found something that nobody else sees. But for an investor, that's almost the opposite. It's very risky. So don't be worried that there's competitors in the market, because all that means is that the market is validated. What an investor will look for very early on is your idea validated? Meaning, you moved from idea stage to, let me actually see if someone's going to pay me for this. That's validation. So if your business model isn't validated, that's another big hole, big problem that you need to look at to make sure that you have a viable business. And we can go into that in a little bit more detail, but on the competition side of things, if you have no competitors, you're doing something wrong, because you always have competitors, whether they are direct or indirect. People are finding ways to solve the problem that you identified already. They may not be solving it the best way possible, but you do have some indirect competitors there in terms of how is the problem currently being solved. We are the XX for the YY. I didn't talk about that, but a good way to frame your business model is maybe think about other markets that aren't related to what you're doing, but has a similar model for the business that you're in. So we are the Uber for XYZ. We're the Airbnb for something. Maybe you're working on something that's in the shared economy. Maybe you are a small business, but think about ways to frame that idea into something that's easier to comprehend. Talk about market, your revenue model. So again, that comes down to how to make money. How are you scalable? You need to show that you know your numbers well. Finance is a huge part of managing a business, something that I've also learned to manage my own. If you're not comfortable doing all the accounting and the financial aspects of it, you either have to do your best to try to study up, try to understand that as best as you can, or do your best to find somebody on your team that does that well. Cash flow problems can kill a business fast, especially small businesses, and it's a major focus point for investors. You need to make sure that you're managing your cash flow, your debt, and make sure that you have an understanding each month of what's coming in versus what's going out, because that's a really important aspect of your business, especially at the early stages, especially if you're bootstrapping and you don't have any funding yet. The good news is that you're all part of a great program here, and there's a lot of resources available to you that can help you in this area. So don't be afraid to use your resources and to ask for help and to reach out to others who can either help you in your business or maybe point you in the right direction. The last one here, traction. Traction just means customers. What do your sales look like in terms of customer numbers? If you have a growing stream of customers, that's also a great reference to validation of your business model. Maybe some of you are pre-revenue, meaning you have an idea or you don't have paying customers yet, but you can still show some ways to demonstrate that not only is the idea validated, but you do have some traction. Think about, maybe you're trying to get funding so that you can build the first prototype of something. So you can create a landing page, provide all the aspects of this product or the service that you're offering, and collect information from those who might be interested in being a potential customer down the road. So if you approach an investor saying, hey, I'm actually looking for funding to build this first prototype, but we don't have it built yet, and we have 1,500 that just signed up last month. That's a good sign of validation. So that means that presents a much better case for investment versus, hey, I got this idea, can you just give me money to build it, then we'll see if it works. That's never really a good case to make for investment. You always want to show validation so that you can actually provide evidence and proof that your idea has wings. So this is how we can do it better. This was a little bit further away from the big chunk and the big content-heavy area that I just went over. By this point, you're making a case for your validated business model, and you're demonstrating to an investor that you're awesome, that you know your stuff, and that you have a unique value proposition for your business. Let's not forget why we're here, though. You're seeking funding so that you can kickstart your business. You need to be clear about what you plan to do post-investment. So that means, where are you going to allocate the funding? Are you going to invest in a better website or maybe in some professional equipment? If you run, for example, like a food truck, are you going to increase your fleet size? Are you going to hire more staff? You need to provide information to an investor about what you're going to be doing with that money and how you can project where that money will come in and how long it's going to last. That's called your burn rate. You have to show that we've done our homework. This is our ideas for what we can do with this cash influx, and also these are our milestones. I have this timeline here because if you say, hey, we're going to have a new website up by June, we're going to have X amount of revenue projected by July, and we're going to meet our goal by August. These are all your projections. These are you setting milestones not only for the team, but also to provide some information to your investor about what you plan to do and what the future outlook looks like. Regarding actually these milestones, one thing I will say is this also ties a bit into your financial model. I talked about where financial modeling can make some people a little bit uncomfortable, but really all it is a way to show how your business is operating. Investors may follow up with some more information if you're a more established business, like income statements or cash flows. But again, if you're a more established business that's successful, you usually will have that taken care of, or at least you have an accountant or somebody that can help you put that information together. But regarding projections that have to do with investment, everybody makes projections because they want to show that they have a good idea of where the business is going to go and how they want to grow it. Investors also see these all the time, and they know that beyond year one, usually the projections are a lot of BS. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do them, but it means that you have to do your due diligence to follow up, to be as conservative but realistic about where you see the business going. And if you're a startup, investors are looking for really explosive market sectors, meaning that a startup model works in terms of scaling. They scale up very, very fast. That's their goal. Small businesses work a little bit differently. Scaling is a goal, but it's not something that is as intrinsic as a startup business model. But at the same time, you want to show that obviously your business is succeeding and that you think that you will be financially sound in 2 or 3 years from now. But be realistic and be conservative in your approach on that. So this is how you, the investor, can help us. This is your most straightforward element of the pitch deck. If you've covered all your bases well, you've answered a good 90 to 99% of the questions you'll be getting on your pitch day. Your pitch deck has already done a majority of the work for you. All that's left now is to put a face to the name of the business, and you have to demonstrate in person the expertise that you've already communicated. And really the ultimate question, that's one that you get to ask, and it should be in a good pitch, one that you get to ask versus coming to an investor kind of begging or pleading for investment. That's never a good approach. You want to say, hey, we know what we're doing. The train's leaving the station. You can either join us or you can be left behind. So you can ask, are you in or are you out? Not in the Heidi Klum accent, if people know what I'm saying. But really, what I mean by this is, this is a little bit beyond content, but you have to demonstrate confidence here. You're the one that you built this business. You know this business really well. This is where your passion is. You're telling them that you're awesome, and you've already demonstrated the case for why you're awesome. And you're telling them again, we're going to do this with or without you. So a big way to look at this also is you're building a sense of urgency. You're taking the initiative and you're showing that you're in control, and really wrapping it up in this way helps to polish off your pitch and put a much better position for the business in terms of investment versus coming to an investor in a really passive tone, or again, like I said, where you're sort of asking for something versus saying, hey, this is an opportunity for you, because that's what investment is. They want a return on their investment, and you're presenting them with a really viable opportunity. Those are really how the best pitches work. How many slides? So I know that you guys have a requirement for 10 slides. That's usually going to be the most minimum pitch deck, and I like to see pitch decks like that because they tend to be the most concise, and it really forces you to put all of the information in as brief and as easy to follow format as possible. Ultimately though, the pitch deck, like I said, it will evolve a bit, and there's many different schools of thought on what should be in it. What I tell a lot of teams I work with is, your pitch deck is as long as it needs to be. It doesn't mean it should be 70 slides. I have seen some that are that long, but a lot of that is like appendix information. But ultimately, you want to be brief, like I said, and you want to just strive for presenting a clear case that's easy to follow. If you think of an investor, like a VC or an angel, think of them as like a recruiter. They're getting tons of resumes per day. The same with pitch decks. They're talking to startups, they're talking to teams all the time. They're looking at these day in and day out. And they can get really boring, they can get really monotonous, and they can also just, people can get lost trying to understand the information. That's also where good design comes into play. So I don't really talk about design in this presentation, but in the book that I suggested, in the book that this template is based off of, design can really do a big number for you in terms of communicating information very quickly and efficiently. Think of like looking at a spreadsheet versus looking at an infographic or a data visualization. It really tells that story in a visual manner. Or a good cover shot on your pitch that shows something relevant to the business. Maybe you run a fitness business and you have an athlete using like a wearable device that you're selling, or something that kind of tells a little bit of that story up front, but also entices and invites somebody to say, hey, I want to find out about what's in this pitch deck, or I want to read more about this company. It's kind of a marketing approach to it, but it's better than just a simple presentation. So consider the format. This is a good one for you also because I know that you have to put together a video as part of your pitch. And so a pitch deck can take many forms. Usually in its most basic form, it will be a slide presentation. You should at least have that in place because that tends to be a majority of what investors will ask. But like I said, these sometimes can get a little bit boring or monotonous. There's different ways to pitch and present the information. One is a video format. Maybe you can direct them to, maybe not a full pitch, but maybe a walkthrough or user case about this product or service that you're selling to kind of show how it's working. If you look at Kickstarter, they usually have this really good format where Kickstarter will provide a lot of information regarding maybe a story about the founders, a problem that they discovered in the market, how they solved it, some details about the product that they're putting together, and then a video. That's a pitch deck in itself. That's just a different format of it. That's on the website. That's maybe a splash or a landing page. But really, the best ones are incorporating all of the same information. It's just a different format. So when you think about format, I would say that at least have a slide presentation put together. But there's many different ways for you to not just focus on that. Try to be a little more creative. We will have a challenge to put a video together, so that'll be a good exercise for you because it's a different way to present the same information. But also think about other ways down the road, maybe if you want to present something that is a little bit different from the norm, it might be able to make somebody remember you better or to make them follow up for more info. Okay, so moving from all of the technical aspects of a pitch deck, this is what I really like to talk about because this is what I really do, and this is story. So you can have a good pitch deck that's very technical and has all the information in it, but may not be resonating well with your audience or your reader because it might lack story. Again, like I said, investors invest in you. They're not investing in the product or the service. They're investing in you and your team. So really what helps them, what helps you present a more compelling case is through your stories. This is a huge part of pitch decks and really in branding and communication that is sometimes not given the same weight as all those technical aspects. But I always like to say that this is just as important because I really feel it is. I'm here to tell you, like I said, story matters. Stories transform your pitch and your presentation of the business. They also give life and relevance to the work you're doing. And again, they move beyond just the pitch to also other aspects of your business, like your customers, the partners, and clients. Your story is also your own. That's what makes your business you. Maybe I'll give an example of a shoe store, but there's tons of places you can buy shoes today. And there's tons of ways that you can get shoes, but why are all these different sellers out there? Because they all have different branding, different stories, and a different type of customer that they serve. And so they've discovered ways to define those stories and to tell them in a way that provides them for customers who not only identify with them, but it resonates with them. And again, that can translate to investors or partners or other clients. So I hope one of the outcomes of this portion is to give you some tips and ideas on how to tell your story and do your pitch a little bit more effectively. Let's consider why is story so important. Think about story in its most native format. Storytelling predates writing. Stories originally were spoken word. A story is a medium for communicating information, teachings, or experiences among one another. Stories are imprinted among people and cultures, and the best stories are retold among another for generations. If you think about our greatest novels, they usually tend to be religious texts, but those were initially in the earliest forms, they were just a collection of stories. Somebody finally decided to write those down and put them on paper formats so they could pass down to future generations. But originally, the original formats were in stories and in spoken word. And really, we still have those books today, so those stories have really survived the test of time, and they continue to be told and retold today. So if we think about the business applications of storytelling, really how can we incorporate story into what we're talking about today, pitch decks and business? There's tons of books and resources about this. I read a lot of those myself, and what I draw from it is, in any business, there's going to be 3 points that are key. First one is to engage. You want to pique interest, and you want to invite the audience or the investor or whoever you're pitching to. You want to invite them along for a journey. So there's many ways to do this. Oftentimes it can be a story of a personal experience or a provocative question, maybe a rhetorical question. But something that's going to grab attention and make your audience want to listen to you. You invite them. You don't just require them to, a little bit like I'm doing today, but you don't require them to just sit and listen to you and maybe not get anything out of it. In presentations and pitch decks also, don't forget that imagery is very effective. So I talked about maybe a cover slide pitch or using graphics or design as part of that storytelling. Pictures, they really are worth 1,000 words. Don't forget that an effective picture or use of imagery can really get some people curious or maybe ask you questions about it. The next step is to inspire. A lot of times in business and also in pitching, this relates to a problem that you're solving in the marketplace. It can be a story about a customer experience or a story about how you solved the problem which inspired you to start the business in the first place. Inspiration, really what that's all about is showing potential. You're saying, this is how things are, or this is how things were, but I've had this huge discovery and now I know how things could be. That's part of the story also in the pitch. This is how you want things to be, and this is how you want your audience to understand this new world that you're seeing. This is how we're changing things. When you talk about potential, you usually get people very excited. They want to join this party that you have thrown for them. They want to partake in all this fun or this new world and this new picture that you're painting for them. That's all about potential and actually getting people excited and on board about what you're talking about. The third point, and also I think it's the most relevant if you want your business to really stick around, is conversion, to convert. In presenting, conversion is about making your audience embrace a bold idea or making your message stick. In business, conversion is more tangible in terms of getting a new customer, motivating a transaction, or getting a yes from a potential investor. Conversion happens because you successfully connected everything, all the other points, to a point where you actually activate change. So by this point, if you've been effective at telling that story, you've now arrived at a different place. You started in a much better place than, you ended in a much better place than you began. So really, again, this is an invitation, but telling your audience, do you really want to go back to the way things were? Why don't we continue on this path together? This may not be easy. Again, pitching is not easy and getting investment is not easy, but the reward is worth it. And so if you are really effective at crafting that part of the story, that's a really great way to actually convert and to make actual measurable change. So let's go one step beyond business is something we can all identify with, which is entrepreneurship. Like I said, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I really identify with entrepreneurs. I think you're all entrepreneurs in this room too. I know a lot of what some of you guys are working on, and I recognize all the unique struggles we have in building our business. A good definition of entrepreneurship is this one here. Entrepreneurship is about telling a story that connects the deep needs of a group of people with a repeatable solution. This is again from Get Back, what your template is based on. I promise I'm not getting any commission for that book. But what I like about this though is it's a good way to define entrepreneurship, but also it makes a really a good point regarding the repeatable solution. Again, that's the difference between many business models, or really what a business is. If you're not creating a solution that's repeatable, you either don't have a business that is easily scalable, or maybe you're doing something that's like a hobby. So the goal of a business is to be able to replicate the solution you're providing by also removing you from that, because that's really how you grow and how you scale. So if you're a startup, usually it's technological way to scale the business. If you are a small business like a design firm or somebody like me, right now it's just me, but the way that I would replicate my business is either through a graphic designer or maybe like a salesperson who, once they understand the way the business operates, you're able to codify that information and to provide a repeatable solution that others could be trained on, or to repeat that in a different aspect that doesn't require yourself. Sometimes that's really hard to understand, actually, but especially for solo founders who feel that they can do everything on their own. But it's a good lesson to learn early on. So what I want to do is go into the 4 types of stories that are presented in Get Backed, but I'm actually only going to cover 3 of them because the 4th one is not as applicable to every business model. It's still a good one, but the first 3 I think are most essential. So the 4 story types are, first is your origin story, then we have customer story, industry story, and venture growth story. Venture growth, like I said, I'm not going to cover it today, but that really applies to a little bit later stage and highly scalable business models. I can provide you some context if you need a little bit later on, but I want to spend some time on the first 3. So first, before I go into origin story, I'll read you an example. While traveling in Argentina in 2006, Blake Mykoski witnessed the hardships faced by children growing up without shoes. Wanting to help, he created Tom's Shoes, a company that would match every pair of shoes purchased with a new pair of shoes for a child in need. At the time, he called it 1 for 1. What began as a simple idea has evolved into a powerful business model that helps address need and advance health, education, and economic opportunity for children and their communities around the world. So this is a very brief and concise story, but I feel it's still very powerful and effective. We talked about shoes earlier, but introducing Tom's Shoes. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them, but Tom's Shoes is another shoe retailer out there. They compete with every other retailer and brand as well. There's Payless, there's Zappos, there's tons of shoe retailers out there. But Tom's is surviving in the market, and rather than being just another online shoe story, what they've done is they've championed their origin story. They've captured, by doing that, they've captured a niche market of customers not only looking to own a pair of nice shoes, but who also want to support a cause that's dear to their hearts in making that purchase. So Tom's slogan is 1 for 1, and a customer who buys Tom's Shoes knows that they're also buying a pair for somebody who needs shoes, somebody in need. And they've developed a really loyal following of customers through that story. So what's the key to an origin story? Think of it like this. If you want to get people really fired up about your business or your idea, your audience needs to know why you were so fired up about it first. That's a very simple statement, but it can be a really big problem where sometimes you need to get out of that box where you understand every aspect of the business, you're married to the idea, but you may not be communicating that well to others. You really need to define what that story is. Tell them why you were the first one to buy in and why you're staying. That's where your passion is. The best origin stories, they will follow a really classic pattern that's known as the hero's journey. Originally, this was described by Joseph Campbell in The Hero of 1,000 Faces. And the hero's journey itself is another huge topic that we could study. We could spend a whole hour just talking about that, but we don't have the time today. But really, it's safe to say that this is replicated in countless media, from novels to screenplays to TV dramas. The hero's journey is a very clear storyboard and a very clear story arc. It's a really good and time-tested blueprint for storycraft. So the elements of the origin story, think back to what I read about Tom's Shoes. So the first aspect, life is normal and you're blissfully unaware of anything wrong. Then you have a sudden epiphany and you're called to an adventure. You accepted the challenge and you took some bold action. Usually you took a risk. I think anybody who's an entrepreneur knows that you're taking a risk. Then after that, you were forever changed by the experience. And your new purpose in life is, you found your new purpose in life and that's what motivates you today. So when told effectively, the origin story is very powerful. And you're saying, I saw a problem in the market, I solved that, and because of the rewards of the value that I found, I want to be able to do that for others. That's really, I think, why many people start a business. Of course, profits involved, but the best businesses and the ones that usually have the best longevity have some really powerful stories attached to them too. Next one we'll cover, I know that we're almost on our time, so probably just a little bit briefer, but for customer story, I'll read you another example, and this one's from Patagonia. A bit of a background, if you don't know Patagonia, they're a designer of outdoor clothing and gear, and they design these products for what they call the silent sports: climbing, surfing, skiing, snowboarding, fly fishing, and trail running, which none of them I do, but anyway. So let me read you an example of a customer story in the form of a testimonial. Christy St. Clair is a medical assistant who lives in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and she writes this about Patagonia. My son recently sent in a jacket that he had for a couple of years because it was torn and material was coming out of the inner lining. They sent him a gift card for a new jacket at face value of original purchase. You can't get any better customer satisfaction than that. I now will always be a loyal customer. Thank you, Patagonia. So, Patagonia is a big advocate of environmental protection and caring for the planet, and they openly advocate and share their beliefs with their customers. They're not afraid to do that. In this way, they help define and form a tribe of extremely loyal customers who remain fixed to the brand. Patagonia is also known for advising customers not to buy a product as opposed to helping them repair something or increasing the longevity of the product for the sake of cleaning the planet. So they're very much married to that story, even if that could affect their margin in some aspects. But customers, that really resonates with their customers, and that's what makes some customers very loyal to the brand. For me, the customer story I think is the easiest to relate to. It can take many forms. The one I gave you was a testimonial, but really it's a real example of how a customer was moved from a problem to a solution by using your product or your service. Some good examples and points here are: what problem is your customer struggling with, and how are you solving it? How are you making life better for your customers? You want to make the happiness contagious, and ultimately you want to turn them into evangelists, meaning your best salespeople, your best advertisers usually are going to be your customers, especially at the early stage. If somebody is really transformed by your product or service, they're going to tell others. I know that when I have a really good experience at a restaurant, I'll recommend it to all my friends. The food was delicious, I love the service, I loved everything about it. Look at Yelp reviews. The reason we read that is because we want some validation, we want some other information that we feel is not clouded by advertising or something that is more authentic. Those are customer stories that tend to be the most authentic. The customer story speaks directly to your other potential customers as well as current ones, and invites others to check out your brand and encourages loyalty. So let's break down the elements of the customer story. First one is meet Joe, or meet Jane. Joe has a problem, and the problem bothers Joe. Joe tried several options, but no matter what his problem remains. Until one day, Joe found you or your product or your service. Now Joe is so happy, he tells all his friends, don't you want to be like Joe? And really the key here is you want it to be authentic. You want to use a real example. You want to be able to provide a story that is relatable and that resonates, and also that, again, invites others to experience your product or your service for themselves. So think about some ways you would tell your customer story. So the third one, the last one I'll talk about today, is the industry story. And the best relevant example that I came up with here is Airbnb. For decades, the hospitality industry was dominated by big-name luxury hotels or low-budget chains that were cookie-cutter versions of each other all across the country. Later on, we started to see boutique hotels, boutique options take off, and they offered a little bit more personalized experience, but that usually came with a high price. And they still follow the typical hotel model. And then we saw Airbnb come into the market because they identified an opportunity. Airbnb started in 2008 so 8 years ago. And it got its name when its 3 founders rented out air mattresses on the floor of their San Francisco apartment during a design conference. When most of the city's hotel rooms were sold out, they quickly saw a way to capitalize this. In turn, the entire industry was disrupted with the advent of the shared economy. So Airbnb is one of the earliest examples of the shared economy, and now that's pretty prevalent in our lives if you use Uber or rideshare or anything like that. There's many other examples now of shared economy. Airbnb is one of the pioneers in that industry. So they not only impacted that industry, the hotel industry, but if you look at legislation, again, look at rideshare legislation or Airbnb legislation, you can see what a major player it's become in just 8 years. Your industry story doesn't have to be a huge disruptive model, but it's a good way to frame things for a potential investor or even a prospect. So the aspects of industry story, again, it shows how do you fit in the market. This is where you talk about how you're solving a problem better than your competitors. Or perhaps you're the first one to identify a problem and solve it for your customers. Think about how did the industry get to where it is today? What opportunities have you identified that allow you to innovate? And some other points on the industry story. One of my favorite shows is Mad Men. A big quote from Don Draper that's evoked through the series is, if you don't like what people are saying about you, change the conversation. In this way, if you think about it, an opportunity to show, you have an opportunity here to show how you're just a bit smarter than your competitors and how you can challenge assumptions. Just because, like I said earlier, people are solving a problem a certain way doesn't mean that that's the best way to solve it. So if you can identify a different way to solve that problem, especially one that maybe no one's thought about before, again, that leads to a riskier investment, but it doesn't mean that it's not a worthy one. That's where Facebook came out of. That's where these huge companies that we know of now, they usually had some very disruptive models that they started with. They challenge assumptions. So quickly to break down the elements. First aspect is, for a long time, the industry operated according to a set of assumptions based on what others did before. Now the world is changing, either socially, economically, technologically, or a combination of those. And those assumptions don't apply anymore. And now there's a unique opportunity for us to step in and capitalize. So we've identified that opportunity, and now we're going to take advantage of it. So think about ways you could tell your industry story. So quickly, we only have a couple of minutes, but back to Mark Cuban in the elevator. Here's 2 very quick examples I'll give you where you can think about your pitch maybe in a different way than you started with. It relates again to your elevator pitch and really making things concise. First one is maybe think about a way to describe your business using one word only. That really forces you to distill everything down into one word. Maybe you can create that word, but one word that really speaks to your business in the most intrinsic way. Another one is to describe your business using a haiku. Does everybody know what a haiku is? Sometimes people don't, but it's I think it's a Japanese poem, but it's 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. Write a poem about your business using that format and the way that sums it up. And another example I give, although we won't do that here, is describe your business the way your grandmother would. The reason I feel that's a good example is your grandmother doesn't care what API you're using. Your grandmother doesn't care if you're running on iOS 10. All your grandmother cares about is how you make her feel. And that's a really important aspect, especially of your customer story. Think about how you make your customers feel. Those are really powerful stories that you can extract from that. I won't call on anyone today to do those. Sometimes I do, but not every day. These are my own though. So I came up with story shaping. I don't know if that's good yet, but I don't say I'm a storyteller because I'm not telling my own stories. I'm usually telling stories for other people, or I'm helping them extract those stories better. So what I say is I help pull those stories out and we can shape them into something that we can present to others. My own haiku is, we all have stories, we should share them with others, let's find yours today. I think the more I present this, the more comfortable I am with actually showing you that. So, I'll skip this one. This is a good set of resources. I can send this to Ryan also, so you don't have to write all this down, but there's some great resources regarding how to get information related to investment, some good books to read, and also some help on the design area. I didn't talk too much about design today, but design, again, is really effective as far as helping you communicate that story better. Slide Beat is actually a really good one where I think if you go there, they have a predefined pitch deck template that has some smart design applied to it. It's always good to work with the template, but you need to make sure your story is done first. It's not a good way to start with the design and then try to create a story from it. People will see through that a lot easier. Okay, does anyone have any questions? I'll keep it on this in case you guys want. Okay.
So you said at the beginning that the team is the most important part of the pitch. Should that be the first slide? I mean, I've seen a lot of pitch decks where the team part is always the last slide.
So it tends to be towards the end. Where I've seen it, where it's at the beginning, is where you have a very experienced entrepreneur. So maybe this is like their 6th venture, or down the road. If it's a very experienced entrepreneur, or maybe somebody who's well known within that industry, I've seen the team slide, usually it's maybe 1 or 2 agents, a smaller team with that one. Usually that's more up front. Another one to consider is maybe it's a very compelling story. If you feel that you understand that story well and you can tell it in a very effective way, without introducing the team, so to speak, you can introduce yourself as the founder and tell your founder story. Otherwise, it's okay to put that in the back, but the team is still most important because when you're presenting it in person, again, the investor usually did their homework, read the pitch deck already, they know about what you're doing, and they just want more information on you and the team.
When you start in the business, usually you're on your own. And I mean, you probably can study, have a class about certain parts of it, but it's always going to be the value of the product that you offer, what makes you different, what is your customer, how are you going to create a revenue, and how you're going to proceed through the whole process. You actually will have to study like 5 majors to understand every single of them, finances, marketing, blah, blah, blah. If you are in the beginning stage and you're trying to deliver our appealing message to people that can help you or people that can become partners, what do you think is the most important part to deliver on that message?
What I would say is you need to be very candid and comfortable about knowing where your strengths are as well as your weaknesses. So I think everybody agrees, like you said, as an entrepreneur you have to wear a bunch of different hats. You have to do many different things to be able to get your business off the ground and just run the business. But you know where your strengths are, and you can delegate other aspects of it. Either if you have, some of you don't have a team that you're working with, but for example, say you are not good in putting together a website or graphic design, something in those aspects. If you look at Fiverr, it's a pretty cheap way to get something quick and dirty put together, maybe a logo, or even you can get some pretty cheap websites done. Myself, when I was starting my business, I don't really have a coding background, but I learned WordPress, and I learned WordPress well enough where I created my own website, which is like pretty crappy now. But something where, you do have a luxury at the beginning, especially at the very early stages of your business, where you have some time to sit and figure out how something works, versus 2 or 3 years down the road where maybe you have to be much more mindful of where you're spending your time. But at the beginning, sit with yourself and also take advantage of what resources are out there. There's UTSA has a small business development resource and center where talk with somebody who's done that before. They started a business themselves, they played the game, and they became very successful. Get as much advice as you can, or what to do at those early stages where it's very challenging to do everything yourself. But ultimately, you do want to at least be familiar in all the aspects, because you have to be comfortable wearing those hats in some stages, even if you don't want to wear them that day. I don't like selling. I'm not a very good salesperson, but I've learned to become better at selling and closing and following up, because you live and die by sales in your business. I've been able to benefit in terms of referrals, where my clients are doing the sales for me anyways. But you find ways to capitalize on that and to leverage your strengths into much more powerful results, as well as find ways to get around some of the things that you may not feel so strongly in. Any other questions?
Fantastic.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Alfred. I'm sure that Carlos has some words to say, but before he gets the opportunity to actually say them, I just wanted to let you know that if you're participating in the Venture Challenge, one of the key components of the pitch deck is making your ask. I think I've said this a handful of times. You want to be specific in the amount of money that you're going to be requesting through this Venture Challenge program. So I think I've used this reference before. If you're thinking of asking for $35,000 to make one T-shirt, well, that doesn't sound like a very good business, and you probably won't get any funding. So be realistic, approach this particular set of the Challenge 5, and think about what exactly you need to progress forward as a business. So I'll leave it at that, and then Carlos, you have some things to say, I'm sure.
Well,